When I was younger, I idolized Elvis Presley. And by the time that he died, I always wished I would have tried to make contact with him at some time, but I never did. I never met him, never saw him in person. And eventually I said, I got to do something different with Arnold Palmer. I want to meet him. I just have to meet him before it's too late, and I'm going to go out of my way to make it come true. Well, in 2012, I wrote my first fan letter I've ever written to anybody, and I felt like a little girl writing a fan letter to a movie star, but I wrote a letter to Arnold Palmer telling him what I thought about him, how much I admired him, how he influences me and a lot of other people. And shortly, within a week, I got an answer back from him, and I was on cloud nine, and that was the beginning. My name's Don Hastings. I live in State College, Pennsylvania. I've been a member of the Penn State golf courses for more than 50 years, and I've been a fan of Arnold Palmer for longer than that. I just love the man to pieces. I've always wanted to meet him. I never thought I'd have the chance. Then in January of 2013, the Penn State head pro and some of his assistants went down to the annual PGA merchandise show in Orlando, and they invited me to go along with them. When the show was over, they found out a friend of theirs invited them to play the next day at Bay Hill, Arnie's course. There's no chance that we were going to meet Arnie, I didn't think at that point, but the day before we went, he said, Arnie might be there tomorrow, but we're not sure. Well, that night, I couldn't sleep. I just was laying awake all night long thinking about what am I going to say to Arnie after all these years of wanting to meet him. If I walk up to him, I got to have something to say. And so all night long I kept trying to think, trying to put a couple sentences together that made sense, and I swear I didn't get 1 ounce of sleep. The next day we went to Bay Hill to play. All I did was look around for Arnold Palmer, nowhere to be seen. Then our tee time came, played the first 9 holes, and when you're done with number 9, you drive past the driving range and past the first hole to go to the 10th hole. As we were driving by there, I said, stop. He said, what's wrong? There's Arnie. He said, he looked over and he says, you can't go over there now. He has people with him. You can't intrude on him. I said, I can't not do it. And by that time, I was out of the cart with my camera running over there. And I walked up to Arnie and I was wanting to say what I had planned. And I opened my mouth and my lip was quivering and I couldn't get a word out. I took a deep breath and tried again. Tears were in my eyes and I couldn't say anything again. And I thought, wow, I'm making a fool of myself. I'm ready to start blubbering. I'm going to cry. And tried the 3rd time, and still nothing. Finally, the 4th try, I said, Mr. Palmer, if you've ever looked up to somebody and admired them the way I have you for more than 50 years, and then you had a chance to actually meet that person in real life, you have some idea how I feel right now. And he just stood up. He was very patient with me the whole time I was there making a fool of myself. And he stood up then and patted me on the back and shook my hand and said, that was very nice. Thank you very much. And right away I felt great then. I felt at ease. Then I turned around and there was a guy who said, I can't go over there. And our other buddies from Penn State in front of us with their cameras and their Penn State logos. And Arnie says, you guys all from Penn State? And I said, yeah. And he says, do you work there too? And I said, no, but I'm there more than those guys are there. I go there and play golf every day. He says, good for you. And he gave me a thumbs up. And I tell you, I was so emotionally wrecked that day. I couldn't tell anybody about meeting Arnold Palmer after wanting to do it so long. And I couldn't tell, I still get very emotional thinking about it to this day. And it's just one of the greatest experiences of my life. I just will never forget it. After I relaxed a little bit, we started talking about Penn State and how Arnie said his dad went to college there, and we said, yeah, I know that. And then we said that he won the high school PIAA championship at Penn State courses, and He says, I won it 2 times. And then we asked Arnie if we could take some pictures. And he said, sure. He had introduced me by that time to Howdy Giles. Howdy turns out to be Arnie's #1 fan. He has taken more pictures of Arnie than anybody ever. And so Howdy said, would you like me to take your picture? And I gave him my camera. So he took my first picture with Arnold Palmer. Howdy's become a good friend of mine too since that time, through emails back and forth with him. Joe Hughes, a head pro at Penn State, was invited to take a group of guys out to Latrobe, Arnie's course here in Pennsylvania, to play golf. Didn't have any idea if we'd ever see Arnie. Didn't even know if he was there at that time. But we went out there and went to the clubhouse and bought a couple hats and things like that. And then we went in Arnie's office, his outer office, and his brother Jerry was there. Jerry showed us all around the office, all the awards and plaques and trophies that he has there, and the letters from presidents, and showed us all around and told us little stories about all these items that were on every inch of space was covered with awards and trophies of one kind or another. Then after we were there for a while, Doc Giffen, who was Arnie's longtime associate, as his assistant, come out and said that you can come in Arnie's office now. That was the first time we really knew we were actually going to see him. We were hoping, but we didn't know. And so we were ushered into Arnie's office and sat down. I was 10 feet away from him, just sitting there. We were there for 45 minutes probably, and Arnie made everybody feel so comfortable. We could have been there for 3 hours, and I don't think he would have chased us out. It seemed like he was enjoying it as much as we were. Arnie has a dog named Mulligan, and I met Mulligan when we got to the office that day, and I showed him a picture of my dog, whose name is Arnie, and he enjoyed that. And then I said, I'm sure, Arnie, you don't remember meeting me before, and he interrupted and says, yes, I do. I can tell you exactly where it was and just when it was. He said it was in January down at Bay Hill. I was sitting there by the first tee, and you come over and introduced yourself to me with some other guys from Penn State. And it made my day when he remembered me from January to October. This is October 3rd. He signed autographs that the hats that we bought, and took pictures of each of us, and with each of us and with the whole group of us, and was just as friendly as he could be. And I said, Arnie, could I ask you one more question? Could you tell me the story about the Hickok belt? The Hickok belt was an award that the Hickok Belt Company gave at that time to the athlete of the month every month of the year. Then at the end of the year, they got the 12 monthly winners together at a big ceremony, and they had a big party, and the winners were all there together. Then they would name one of them the athlete of the year. Roger Maris, who was a star with the Yankees at that time, he was one of the monthly winners. He saw Arnie, he sort of did a double take and says, what the hell are you doing here? Maris thought golfers are not athletes. So Arnie brushed it off at the time. And later on in the evening, when Arnie was announced as being the athlete of the year, he got up as he walked out through the aisle to go up on stage. He walked by Roger Maris and says, what the hell are you doing here? Arnie laughed and I laughed. And him telling me that story was another highlight of my life. I just loved it. Well, after we looked around the office some more, Jerry took us down to the barn. If I would win 3 or 4 awards in a lifetime, I'd think it was hot stuff. His barn is filled with awards and trophies, and every wall is filled. It just is amazing how you wouldn't think that many awards ever existed. And he had thousands of golf clubs and hundreds of Arnold Palmer golf bags, and just all this stuff that he's kept over the years, and all the letters he got from people. And the barn was a real museum. You could spend the whole day there and not see nearly everything that's in there. One of the big items there is the tractor that Arnie's dad, Deacon Palmer, road, moved the dirt around on the Latrobe, and he was the groundskeeper there. And I got to sit in the tractor, and that was pretty neat. On New Year's Day of 2014, I got a phone call from Howdy, who said he got up early that morning and made a tea time for January the 8th, 2014, for my brother and Howdy and I were going to play Bay Hill in Orlando. So I took off from Pennsylvania and drove down to Georgia, where my brother lives. And so I went down there and picked him up. We went to Bay Hill Lodge and stayed there overnight. We had plans to meet with Howdy Giles that evening. Howdy says, tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, meet me in the clubhouse, and then I'll take you to Arnie's office, and you and your brother will spend some time there talking with Arnie in his office. So that was going to be a great day. So the next morning, we were up in the clubhouse waiting for Howdy to come in, like little kids waiting for Santa Claus to appear. Here comes Howdy Giles. And right away, I could tell the look on his face, something wasn't right. And I thought, oh, we're not going to meet Arnie. But it wasn't quite that bad. He said, Arnie's out back sitting on he's out there on his golf cart. He's not going to go back to his office. He's just going to go back to his condo and stay there the rest of the day. But you and your brother can go out back and meet him there in his cart and talk to him for a little bit, just say hello to him, and but then he's going to leave. So I thought, I was kind of disappointed. So we went out there and we talked to him a little bit, and my brother got him to sign a Bay Hill flag that he had bought there, and I showed him the book that I had made up a book of a couple other times when I had met him, because I didn't want to forget one moment of these special days of mine. So I gave him this book, and he started leafing through it and reading some of it, looking at the pictures, and he looked at me and he said, boy, this is a lot of work. He said, this is really nice, but it's a lot of work. I said, it was not work. I said, this is enjoyment, total enjoyment. And he says, well, this is really nice. He said, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you guys all out to lunch, and I'm buying. And he brought his secretary and his daughter, Amy. Amy's son is Sam Saunders, and who's now on the Pro Tour. Alan really enjoyed meeting him. He turned to him and he leaned toward him and said, Mr. Palmer, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I just have to say it. And I'm going to read this because I don't want to get it wrong. It says, Mr. Palmer, you are a great person. You are one of the greatest golfers of all time, and you always will be. You are a great American. This has been recognized by the President, by the United States Congress, and by millions and millions of ordinary Americans. You are a great man. But you are not only a great man, more importantly, you are a good man. The fact that people like Don and I are able to spend time with you like we are at this lunch today is proof that you are a good, kind, and generous man. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Arnie was touched by that. Howdy had tears in his eyes, and Arnie's daughter really said she really enjoyed what he said. So that was a really, really nice gesture that Arnie did to take us out to lunch like that. And I had a list of 14 questions that I took with me that I had typed up because I didn't want to forget to ask him anything. And so I told him that, and I got my list out, and I started reading question number 1, and he answered it, and he said, next question. And I give him another one, and he answered every one of them, and it was just a great time. And then after we were done having lunch, then Howdy and Alan and I, my brother Alan and I, went and played Bay Hill, and then we come back and saw Arnie again. And what we thought might be a bummer of a day for a second turned out to be one of the greatest days of both of our lives. After we were done with the meal, we were still sitting around there talking a little bit, and we got some pictures taken with Howdy and Alan and I with Arnie, and some with just Alan and myself and Arnie. And then I said to Arnie, Arnie, can I just give you a hug? And he said, sure. I reached down and grabbed him around the shoulders and gave him a hug. You don't get closer than that.